The Philippines under Duterte, of course, is dealing with some questionable behavior, questionable legislation and laws, and the latest potential law should have some individuals living in the country worried. It has to do with the country's national anthem and whether or not people sing it with enough enthusiasm. In fact, the House of Representatives in the Philippines has just approved legislation that would give people a fine or prison time if they're not singing the national anthem enthusiastically enough. Now, if the bill, which will be considered by the Senate, is approved and signed into law, a failure to sing the anthem with sufficient energy will be punishable by up to a year in prison and a fine of 50,000 to 100,000 pesos, or about $1,000 to $2,000. A second offense would include both a fine and prison time. It's crazy.
Okay. All right, so my favorite part of the bill is when it says, quote, "The singing shall be mandatory and must be done with fervor."
So we have an employee here who is Filipina, and I was curious, what she had to say about it, and she mentioned that the national anthem in the Philippines is actually really difficult to sing. It's like high pitched, and so. I mean, can you imagine being placed in a situation where like you're uncomfortable? I'm uncomfortable singing unless I'm on this show. I sing all the time. But yeah, I mean, what if you just can't sing? And who's the arbiter of whether or not you're enthusiastic enough?
It gets worse. It mandates, the bill does, that the tempo of any public performance of the anthem must fall between 100 and 120 beats per minute. I would immediately be arrested. I don't even know what beats per minute is. Yeah, no, there's no, I don't know any, I couldn't begin to tell you if something is within 100 and 120 beats per minute if literally my life depended on it. And in the Philippines it might.
I just defined it for you. It's
That doesn't mean anything to me. Does that mean anything to you guys?
How many unces in 1 minute? That's what a beat per minute is. It's literally what it sounds like.
You are speaking Chinese right now. Okay, actually I know Chinese better than I know that. Okay, so now you might be tempted to make fun of the Philippines, and you would be right. And by the way, not the people, but obviously the government. But they're not alone. In India, you must also stand for the national anthem, and they play it before movies, which is nice and annoying. So if you've got popcorn and stuff, you got to stand up with your popcorn and you got to do the thing. And if they're not playing, 2 different incidents. They arrested 19 different people for not standing for the Indian national anthem at movie theaters, so they went to prison. In Thailand, the national anthem is played all across the country in government buildings, parks, train stations at 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. People are expected to stand and be silent, so you're like rushing to work. Okay, you got to stand and be silent. Then they consider, this is my favorite part, having cars also stop, and then they're like,
"Oh my God.
That's a really bad idea."
That's a really bad idea. I would be miserable.
Could you imagine 8 a.m. Everybody slams on the brakes on the freeways? I mean, who's the clown who came up with that idea? And then there is, you cannot offend the dignity of the monarch in Thailand. It's a story we talked about before. In this case, not standing at an anthem being played at a movie theater in 2007, someone was arrested for that. They faced up to 15 years in prison for offending the dignity of the majesty there. The Chinese also have a law on this, malicious revisions or derogatory performance of the anthem, but they are far more merciful. You only get 15 days in detention. Okay, now we're all laughing, the Chinese, the Indian, the Thailand, Philippines. Here in America, we realize the national anthem, I mean, you shouldn't punish people for that, unless of course they play in the NFL.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna bring up. We might not have a government that punishes us for not standing during the national anthem yet. But we do have a court of public opinion, and that court of public opinion has been brutal against people who have, used the national anthem in some form of protest, right? So Colin Kaepernick, I mean, it's pretty much destroyed his career.
Yeah, And it's not just a court of public opinion, which by the way is mixed. They always say like, oh, everybody hates Colin Kaepernick. That's not remotely true. There's a lot of people who love Colin Kaepernick, and it's a mixed bag. I haven't seen any polling on it, but it's going to be split one way or another. No, the people who really can't stand Colin Kaepernick are the people in power, the actual NFL owners. So they are claiming that you can go 3 quarterbacks deep. Now in the preseason, that's oftentimes it'll be 4 or 5 quarterbacks deep on each team in 32 teams. And Colin Kaepernick still wouldn't make any of those teams. That is a preposterous claim. So in America, if you don't stand for the national anthem, you could lose millions of dollars. You're talking about a fine up to $1,000 to $2,000 in the Philippines, and we make fun of them. Now, of course, Kaepernick is in a unique situation where he was making millions and hence could lose millions. But that is what happened to Colin Kaepernick. And so my point is, if you thought those guys were goofy, and this happens to be in the news. We didn't do this because of Kaepernick. It was just a law proposed in the Philippines recently. But then we should look internally as well. Look, I've said it a million times on this show. I love America. I believe that we should not run from the idea of America, the flag of America. That's why we often have it in the background in this show. And it's a wonderful idea, and we should actually live up to it. But part of that idea is that everybody gets to have their own opinion, and they don't have to sing the national anthem or stand for the national anthem with the same fervor that you do. So don't be a weirdo dictator wannabe or a monarch wannabe. We're supposed to be a free country. So as much as I would say to the king of Thailand and the clown in the Philippines, Duterte, who demands these things, I would say equally to the NFL owners, you should actually believe enough in your own country that you don't have to mandate patriotism. Young Turks now has over 6 billion lifetime views. You know who did that? You did that. We're now larger than CNN, ABC, you name a news network online, we're larger than them. And you built all that as everyone scoffed and didn't believe. And here we are, guys, thanks to you. Build independent media together with us at tytnetwork.com/join.